Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1523 of our daily content grind. So, I'm going to warn everybody right at the jump here, this is not the most pleasant of topics. It's an inevitable topic for us to discuss, but it is not the happiest topic. I'd like to do more upbeat things, especially because I tend to post in the evenings, and it'll leave you on kind of like a mellow kind of like feeling as, before you sign off of YouTube for the day. And we're going to get there. Trust me, there's a bright side to all of this. There's something else to be gained. But it's just going to be the unfortunate facts of the situation we have right now as collectors. And also, before we really get into that, let us also acknowledge we are complaining about something from the perspective of toy collectors, knowing very well, there are people who are suffering far more for the exact same causes. So, yeah, this is not to diminish any of that. Everyone's got their own struggles right now. None of them are greater or lesser. Ultimately, we are complaining about playthings that we do not need to live our daily lives. There's people out there with far bigger concerns, and we are not diminishing that just because we're going to vent a little bit here today. So, with all that cleared, we all know where the vibe is. Okay. So, Transformer collecting, toy collecting in general, is getting stupid expensive at the moment. So a lot of this discourse got started up again. It's been all year. All year this has been a discussion topic, but lately a few reissues have been announced that really made this prominent. Power of the Prime's Predaking is coming back for the low price of $230. Now, compared to getting one in the aftermarket, that ain't bad. I will say that. However, this was a Titan class toy that went for $160 when it first came out, which means, yeah, this is not right. This is not right. Now, keep in mind, earlier this year, we had the release, or maybe it was like late last year. I can't remember when it was, but it was pre all this nonsense. We had a release for Power of the Prime's Optimus Prime that was completely normal, $54.99 retail. Good enough price after the fact for me to actually consider buying that mold again, even though I still have the Nemesis version that's categorically better. It's just nice to see it on shelves again. So we know this is all very recent price inflation, right? But this has been across the board lately. We saw the same discourse come up with the brand new Nemesis Prime exclusive at Hasbro Pulse. This one would be great, and I will admit I bought this. The frustrating thing is that they announced this would be a $75 set, which was already a hard pill to swallow because it's essentially a Voyager class toy that comes with 3 mini-cons. But then it came out for $90. So we know, okay, we'll get into that. But yeah, there's already a very expensive set. Pulse exclusives that are linked to actual real world conventions do tend to run a lot more expensive, but this just seemed beyond acceptable. Like, you're telling me 3 mini-cons replace the exact same cost as a full-size transforming trailer that turns him into a foot-tall beast of a robot, over foot tall. Yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. Like, that's ridiculously expensive. And that got everyone fired up again. And this is on the back of announcing all of our main lines are getting price increases. So I think some of this wasn't all that outlandish, and a lot of it was expected. Now, we'll keep this in mind. Transformers are always going to inflate in price because they are so different from most other action figure lines. Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, your DC Multiverse, a lot of these toy lines go by the same basic buck. They have certain body types that they always fit into, and there's blanks of those body types that shows, basically they engineer around and sculpt parts onto in order to create the character. So they don't have to figure out brand new engineering every time they want to release a Spider-Man, because they have a Spider-Man body that they just base everything off of. And that's make sure they know where all the articulation goes and such. And obviously the assembly on its way easier. You know how easy it is to disassemble these action figures? Well, yeah, like they're just as easy to put together. You just pop parts together until it all fits. Transformers are different. Every single Transformer that comes out has to have a completely different system of engineering in order to get to a action figure that is equivalent to its brethren in size and articulation. They all need to be done from the ground up. And you're talking about a far higher part count for the transformation and a much more detailed assembly process with a lot more smaller parts, a lot more pins and screws, etc. There's a lot more work that goes into putting a Transformer into a package and selling it at Target rather than, your standard Marvel Legend or whatnot. So the price on Transformers is always going to go up because there's so many more factors than your standard action figure. But now we have $28 Deluxes, $43 Voyagers, and $60 Leaders. And I don't think Deluxe and Leader really surprised anyone. That's about our normal price jump for any Transformer toy when they happen. Voyager's going up almost $10 is absolutely nuts because they were insistent on getting it somewhere in between Deluxe and Voyager price. Now, to date, we do not know what this is going to do to Titan because we've only had one Titan this year, obviously, and that one was an experimental size class. It was Star Optimus Prime that brought the Titan class size down. So we don't know how that's going to affect that. We do know the Commanders do not have an announced price increase. What we do know is that my Walmarts are already on the higher prices. My Targets are not. So Target might be safe for the rest of the year, but they will eventually have to be charging the same price. So there you go. And some of the Walmart stuff, like the Retro G1 collection, they're already up to $30 a pop. You really gotta love that aesthetic for that. Yeah, and the most recent one was the Titan Nemesis, $240. This one was basically like a one and done run. I think everyone was expecting leftovers, and then there were none on this Titan. So that's not a bad one to reissue, but then again, you're still talking about a large increase in the overall price. Now, this listing actually shows what the problem is, and it's that little red warning above the add to cart button. Yeah. This is a tariff thing. Typically, Transformer price increases, we just kind of blame on Hasbro, blame on Marketplace. It's not as simple as just Hasbro is greedy, by the way. We're talking about 100 factors that go into what you pay at the checkout counter. In this case, we know exactly what to blame. But that does mean I get to let Hasbro off the hook for this price increase, which means we can be a little bit more productive about it. It means that we can do just a little bit more. It means we can do just a little bit more to understand it. So in this case, the prices are just going to suck. Like there's just no avoiding that. You have to be exceptionally picky with what you buy these days, Transformer wise. Don't just buy it because it's brand new. If you know a repaint or retool is likely, don't buy the first run. I'm looking at you, Retro G1 collection. Hey, that new wheelie toy looks really well engineered. Looks like a fun Transformer. They've already said it's going to get an 86 release. Wait for that to come out. It's going to be a much better toy when it does. So you have that to factor in. Think about that before you start going off on anything. So yeah, the first step is just be choosy. Be more selective. Don't just go buying up whole waves just because you can. Yeah, and that's kind of gets into the point of the video is as collectors, what are we going to do about this? How do you get by and you still get your toy hobby? And, because I'm not an advocate of giving up your hobbies, right? This does cost money ultimately. Obviously it does, but I'm very pro hobby because you need to take care of your mental health. If, and this is a fun mental health thing for a lot of people, whether that's just the fun of your favorite character getting a brand new toy, or just being able to experience it with your friends and your fandom, or showing it off on videos like I do. This is an important thing. If you don't have your mental health, it's hard to have your physical health, and your physical health is everything. So you need to take care of where your head space is at. And for this hobby, that works for a lot of people. So I don't want anyone to abandon their hobby, but you do have to figure out how to enjoy it despite the difficulties. So here's a few things to do. Here's a few things to do to navigate this for now. For starters, make sure you're paying attention to eBay. So if a brand new toy is coming out of a particular character, like for instance, 86 Thundercracker is on the way, which guarantees Starscream, Skywarp, etc. That means their Earthrise versions, rather. I'm never not going to mess that up. Their Earthrise versions are right now going pretty dirt cheap on eBay, and I'll give you a heads up. They're still pretty good toys. Yeah, they're aesthetically off if you want a clean cartoon appearance, and they're lacking a couple of points of articulation that we expect to be normal these days. But that said, I still find these toys to be very, very good representations. And if all you want is a good transforming representation of Starscream, absolutely go look at the Earthrise version. It's a glut on eBay right now because everyone knows an 86 Starscream with that new super nice mold is going to be coming out next year. So everyone's dumping off the old to pick up the new, and that's a pretty standard practice for Transformer fans. Earthrise Optimus Prime is much the same way. Is the scaling a little bit weird? Yes. Is it anywhere as good as the 86 Optimus? No. But it is still a pretty good Optimus Prime toy with a pretty fun transformation. So absolutely worth picking up if you just want an Optimus Prime, right? So this is even a practice that I would recommend to just anyone. Like, this is actually a really good time to cycle through your collection for toys that are on the older side, toys that you might have replaced in the hierarchy of your collection. You got a better version of this character. Maybe it's time to send the previous version of the character off to the sacrificial altar of eBay and send it off to a new home that's going to appreciate it. And then the money you make off of the sale, you spend on the newer Transformers. That way you're not out nearly as much. A few other little tips here. The multi-packs are super tempting, but if you're only interested in one or two, go look up prices for the individual pieces. I know a lot of people who bought this multi-pack, just to get that cliff jumper you see on screen. Well, you could have gotten it way cheaper if that's all you want, instead of dropping $85 for 4 different molds, some of which you may not have been interested in. You know, did anyone buying that set really, really care about getting a vintage color Tarantulas that wasn't actually the vintage colors? You know, things like that. So do some research before you go. Don't go buying the big multi-packs. There's always people who are going to be trying to split them up, whether that is on eBay or even like on social medias. I see people who all the time go like, just got this pack, who wants this and this character? That happens all the time. You just have to be following the right people. Which also comes to another one. This is a great time to go back and just check out some series you might have skipped in the past. I know a lot of them might be upcharged, but it's also a really great way of not only like getting some new toys yourself, but also helping a fellow collector at the same time. That way the money just kind of stays in the community. You do have some options out there that, like I just showed, are cheaper than you would expect them to be. Cheaper than what you're buying brand new at retail. So if it's something that you've been curious about, if it's a toy line you maybe passed on and you actually do want to get some kind of like new toy experience, consider going back and getting the old. As far as other ways of getting these, so trade forums are still a thing. Here's, there's just a basic screenshot from TFW 2005. You can still get it from there. And again, you're going between fan to fan, meaning that you are supporting a fan that's struggling while also getting something brand new for your collection and scratching that itch. Here's some basic ones for you, just to always keep in mind. If you have a Target, they will always eventually have some kind of toy sale. They'll do a, spend $25, get $5 off. Spend $50, get $10 off. So they'll have something like that, or they'll have like a flat 25% off one toy. Great opportunity. Look at the selection right now. That 4-pack that you see above that site is one of the best 4-packs that they've done in a long time. 25% off that would be great. Are you curious about Cyber World? There's that Grimlock. okay, 25% off that Grimlock is pretty good. Silverbolt is a very thorough package of a Transformer for 25% off. This is fantastic stuff. So learn to wait for those, especially if it's a toy that looks like it's glutting the shelves and is going to be there for a while. Other places to look, your favorite eBay, Facebook Marketplace, if you're still on Facebook. This is kind of going back again to just like finding a local community to keep things within. And speaking of, another great spot, look up your local collector store. So yes, this is a good opportunity. This is a good way of getting like loose Transformers, because not only are they going to be relatively affordable. I mean, like if you're going back to like Beast Wars stuff, you're going to find stuff that's just like still cheaper than what you're paying for modern toys, and you're getting that new toy vibe that you might have skipped out on before. A lot of it is going to be market value, but that doesn't always mean it's a bad thing. There are great toys out there that just sunk in market value, again, because either better versions came out later on, or just the fandom didn't receive that toy or character well. Now, I'll tell you right now, at my shop, seen in the picture, we have a nice selection of loose Transformers, and there's some gems in there. They're going for pretty good prices. They just happen to be very, very good toys people kind of slept on. So, and the good thing about this, the good thing about shops like this is that generally you can test out that loose, opened Transformer toy. So you can check out, is there any kind of breaks on it? Is there any kind of paint wear? How are the joints? That's the most important thing. Now, most often these shops will tell you and warn you before you pick it up, like, yeah, that's got a chip here. This like broke a hinge here. They'll warn you about that usually, and they'll price it accordingly. But for the most part, you can mess with it beforehand and before you buy, which is better than the eBay thing. If you're buying it straight from a collector, you know, off of a collector forum or off of social media, and it's a trusted person, I think you'd be fine. I think you'd be fine because they're all going to take good care of their stuff. But this is a way you can actually support local and get reassurance that you're buying something that's still in good shape at the same time. Other obvious ones, make sure you know your liquidation stores in the area. That would be your TJ Maxx's, your Ross, your Ollie's, you know, that kind of vein. Yeah, now when it comes to these types, it's pretty random what ends up here. Now, if you look on the shelf here, we do have some good options. That Strong Arm is a decent toy. Shard is on there. Shard is a fantastic figure. That one really should not have failed at retail or ended up at these stores because it's a really good toy. And when it comes to a lot of these stores, if you're going to take the risk that something ends up there, keeping in mind weird things happen. Ross has had Masterpiece Bumblebees on, you know, in amongst their all these random unsold toys. They have had Titan class Trypticon showed up this year as like the big holiday get for that section. I love that new black Trypticon for $100, but none of my Rosses got that lucky. Point being, when it comes to these, you kind of have to read the tea leaves. Is it a very obscure character? Yes, then it's probably going to end up at these stores. I hate to say it, but is it a female character? Those do typically end up in clearance and liquidation stores eventually because they're just not popular for a boy-based brand. So you do have to kind of like figure this out. Also, toys that have like a huge glut upon release, like a lot of those like A-level exclusives, the Transformers 1 Optimus Prime, the 86 Bumblebee, things like that. Anything that ships in a solid case, you are most likely going to be able to get at a clearance price eventually if you just wait, or they will end up in a store like this. And failing that, right now, Transformers has a lot of good partner brands that are very affordable still, even with the tariff mess. Right now, we've been doing a lot of work with YOLO Park, and they are still producing really good stuff for relatively good prices for what they are offering. Even when I tried checking out with something I already own, and even then with like the tariff price included, the shipping is not bad. The shipping is not bad. So yeah, there's a good time to explore other Transformer creators right now. You know, they're not going to produce like a transforming figure, but if you just want a solid action figure of someone from Transformers 1 or you like to have some like little model kits you can snap together of these characters, those are options as well, and they're worth exploring. I don't mean to end this video on a cheap plug for my YOLO Park dealings, which I will leave a link in the description so that you can get some of those while helping me at the same time. But it is an option, and that's what this video has been really about. Facing the bad that's going on right now, and then seeing where we can do some good, because not only do we have opportunities to help fellow collectors through hard times, but also we really do need to practice healthier collecting habits. And this is just a video full of those, selling off the old to buy the new, being willing to buy a loose figure rather than old, going back and buying the old figures and experiencing something fresh. All of this is a healthy practice, and just controlling what you grab, that instinctive stuff, and being patient and waiting for sales. All of this is healthy collecting, and all of this is something we need to practice a little bit more, especially right now. So those are the tips. That's what I got for you today. Hopefully some of this changes. But as long as we are writing it out, that's stuff you can do. I'm also going to remind everybody, don't talk politics in the comment section, please. But I'm going to leave it at that today. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.